All right, so when you hear the word diabetes, your brain probably jumps straight to sugar, right? But what if I told you that same word, diabetes, also describes a totally different condition, a crisis of water, not sugar? Yeah, the story here is way more interesting than you'd think. So let's break it all down.
So let's start with this puzzle. How on earth can one single word describe two completely different problems happening inside the body? One's about sugar, the other's about water. It sounds kind of weird, but stick with me because by the end of this, the answer is going to be crystal clear.
Okay, so to get our bearings, let's dive into what most people think of when they say diabetes. We're talking about diabetes mellitus, and it really comes in two main flavors. So the whole thing really boils down to one crucial player, insulin. Just think of insulin as the key that unlocks your body's cells to let sugar in for energy. Now, in type 1, which you often see in kids and young adults, the body's factory just stops making the key. Period. No insulin produced at all. With type 2, which is way more common in adults, the body's still making some keys, but either it's not enough or the locks on the cells are kind of rusty and don't work right. And that, of course, means the management is totally different. For type 1, you need that insulin key for life. For type 2, you can often start by managing it with diet and other medications.
Now here's where things get serious. When either type of diabetes gets out of control, blood sugar can shoot up to really dangerous levels. This can trigger life-threatening emergencies we call hyperglycemic crises. And just to keep us on our toes, they have some very, very similar names.
First up, we have DKA, which stands for diabetic ketoacidosis. You can think of this as the classic emergency for someone with type 1 diabetes. So, with no insulin key to let sugar into the cells, the body just panics. It thinks it's starving, so it starts burning fat for fuel like crazy. The big problem, this emergency fuel creates a nasty byproduct called ketones, and ketones are acidic. A whole lot of them, and your blood becomes dangerously acidic. Not good.
So how does your body scream for help? Well, it all kicks off with one thing. It's desperately trying to get rid of all that extra sugar floating around. That leads to polyuria. You're just urinating constantly. Of course, losing all that fluid makes you incredibly thirsty, which is polydipsia. But here's the kicker. Even with all that sugar in your blood, your cells can't use any of it. So they're screaming for energy, causing polyphagia, or this insane hunger. It's a truly vicious cycle.
And then we have the other major crisis, HHS, or hyperosmolar hyperglycemic state. This one usually pops up in people with type 2 diabetes, and sometimes it's the very first sign they even have the condition. See, in this case, there's just enough insulin hanging around to stop the body from going into that full-on fat-burning panic mode. So you don't get that dangerous buildup of acid. What you get instead is an unbelievably high blood sugar level, which leads to severe, life-threatening dehydration.
And, just to make things a little more fun and confusing, medicine has given this thing a whole alphabet soup of different names. If you ever see HHNK, HHOC, or even HUNK, don't sweat it. They all mean the exact same thing, this really dangerous state of extreme dehydration.
Okay, let's put these two side by side so it really clicks. The bottom line is this. DKA is a crisis of acid, and it's caused by a total lack of insulin, usually in type 1. HHS, on the other hand, is a crisis of dehydration caused by sky-high blood sugar, usually in type 2. Two really different problems, and each one is a major, major threat.
All right, so that's the whole world of sugar diabetes. But remember that question I asked at the very beginning? Well, it's time to introduce the water diabetes. And trust me, this is a real twist.
Meet diabetes insipidus, and here's the absolute most important thing you need to know. This has nothing, and I mean nothing, to do with blood sugar. No insulin, no pancreas, none of it. This is a completely separate condition where the kidneys just can't hold on to water. So if it's not about sugar, what's going on? Well, to really get diabetes insipidus, we got to look at this really elegant system our body has for staying hydrated. It's a signal chain that connects the brain and the kidneys.
So here's how it's supposed to work. Your brain makes this super powerful hormone called antidiuretic hormone, or ADH for short. It gets released into your bloodstream, travels all the way down to your kidneys, and gives them a really simple instruction. Hey, hold on to water. Don't let it all go. But in diabetes insipidus, something goes wrong with that message. The signal chain gets broken.
And it turns out there are basically two ways this critical signal can fail. In what we call central DI, the problem's upstairs, in the brain. For whatever reason, it's just not sending out the ADH message. Then there's nephrogenic DI, where the brain sends the message out perfectly, but the kidneys, well, they're just not listening. Either way, whether the message isn't sent or the message isn't received, the result is exactly the same. The body just can't hold on to its water.
Okay, I know we've covered a lot of ground here, so let's just boil it all down to the absolute core takeaway. If you only remember one thing from all this, make it this.
First, diabetes mellitus, doesn't matter if it's type 1 or type 2, is a sugar problem. The entire issue revolves around sugar in your blood and the hormone that's supposed to manage it, insulin.
And second, diabetes insipidus. Forget sugar completely. This is a water problem. It's basically a plumbing issue revolving around the body's water balance and the hormone that controls that, ADH.
So why the shared name? That brings us back to our original mystery. And the answer is surprisingly simple. It all comes down to one single shared symptom: polyuria, or having to urinate a lot. With diabetes mellitus, the body's desperately trying to flush out all that extra sugar. With diabetes insipidus, the body just can't hold on to water. The result looks the same on the surface, but the reasons why are worlds apart.
You know, getting this distinction right isn't just a fun fact. For doctors and nurses, it is absolutely critical. And it kind of leaves us with this final thought. What other medical terms that seem so straightforward are actually hiding a much more complex and maybe even fascinating story just waiting to be unpacked?